times today, and I've spoken about Maya and Angela Simmons and how all that ties into this. Okay, you have women, man. They are so single that they will pretend to have a boyfriend. They will be talking to 5 different guys, but they never. It's almost like they spend more time juggling men than actually finding a decent one because they don't really know what was decent. Women compartmentalize a lot. I think with men, we don't really search for emotional support like that. We really don't. We if we're searching for something, it's we trying to sleep with something, you know what I'm saying? Or we may be looking for somebody for a relationship, you know what I'm saying? But for the most part, we're not trying to have long phone conversations and things of that nature with multiple women. But women will sit and have multiple phone conversations and text back and forth with various different dudes, man. I don't know how they do it, but they do it. What's good, Ant Sound? Like the stream, people. Now with Maya, she's 40. She, been single for a while. But now all of a sudden she is married out of the blue. How you go from being very single to very married? It's because she's probably been juggling various men, but not enough to where she's ready to go public with them. Again, it is, your business, what you do in your private life. But when you put up photos of yourself in a wedding dress and call yourself Mrs. Lansky, you're putting your business out there. Nobody's going to search for anything. The information is being put out there because of you. And I did a video about a week or so ago, maybe 2 weeks ago almost, and I spoke about how why no man wants to date her, because she seems like a very picky woman, and that doesn't change anything. That really doesn't change anything, I still feel the same way I did in that particular video. What's good, Sean? I still feel the same way. My commentary, like if I was to do a secondary video on that, none of my commentary would really change that much, except for the fact that the new information about her possibly being married to herself or to somebody else, And with Angela talking about how she wants a Caucasian male, good luck with that. But you got to look at the failures of your relationships. You chose to date a guy who, was considered not the best choice, but you chose to get with him anyway, and have never made up for that situation. Green card makes you go from single to married quick. I mean, it could be one of them situations. I mean, we never know. This guy, or maybe she's trying to get access to another country, man. You just never know, man. But I want a lot of women to understand, like, you can fix your situation today. You can fix your situation today. Stop listening to these relationship coaches and reading these books that is making you even more confused. Stop listening to your single friend. Y'all notice that women be having like that one single friend that always want to give the females advice that are in relationships that are married, but they always single. And when you bring up their dating life, they don't want to talk about it, but they want to talk about everybody else's relationship and marriage. They want to talk about everybody else's situation. They want to give advice. They want to tell you to leave the guy you've been with for years because you've had some issues that you feel like she shouldn't work out with him. And I think a lot of women be listening to the wrong people. And that's why they end up in a situation where they just give up and say, you know what, I just want a sugar daddy. Just look at how you have women talking about leveling up. You got women out here talking about being feminine. Now all of a sudden you want to be feminine. Why weren't you trying to be feminine when you were in your prime, when you were in your early to mid 20s, late 20s? Why do you want to be feminine now? Well, what's changed? Has time changed? Have you changed? Or do you think that men and what they like have changed, because a lot of men have access to a myriad of women through whatever means, whether it be dating apps, whether it be, social media sites. You can follow somebody, you can DM, private message them, you can talk to people all across the world. That you no longer have to date the people in your city. Like if you're from a smaller city, you don't just have to date those women. You can date, women from different states. You can probably start maybe dating a woman from a different country. You don't have to just date what's around you. Maybe women have taken notice of that. You have guys who are going overseas to date women. And that has some women very upset. It has some males upset. What's interesting while we're on this topic? You have a lot of guys, right, that have no intention of marrying the women that they sleep with, the women that they procreate with, right? But then they get upset because there's no man to clean up their mess. That men have smartened up and men no longer want to be cleanup men. And it angers them because now the burden is back on them to support these women, to marry these women, and they don't like that. And they do it under the guise of, we're doing what is right. So Disick Policing is what's right. Telling a man who he should sleep with, that's you doing what is right. No, what you're doing, you're trying to condition other men to accept the status quo, for them to not to seek anything different. Because once a person, sees a different way of things than from what he was conditioned to believe and think, his perspective is going to change, and what he likes and accepts from women is going to change. You got some of these males, they want to push off these women that they don't see a future with off on other people. That's why they don't want to see these guys traveling. That's why they don't want to see these guys out here dating something differently. And then they make it seem like it's so easy to get them one of these particular women. Let me tell you something. If you fit a certain stereotype, yeah, it may be easier for you to get with certain women than others, that is because for the most part, you fit a certain stereotype. So you're going to have more success than others, but you have certain guys, girls at certain ages, especially women in their prime, they're more interested in a certain type of guy. And that's pretty much universal. There are a lot of women who are in their prime only want a certain type of guy. And if you don't fit that, then they don't want to deal with you, period. So those guys have to make adjustments, whether it be traveling to different states, to different countries, in order to find a match for them. And the fact that you have people shaming those guys, again, these are guys that these women didn't even want. These women didn't even want these guys. They didn't even want them. So why do you care where they go and who they sleep with? Why do you care? Move on with your life. Get with Dirty D. Dirty D Cedric. Get with Dirty D Cedric. Try to start a life with him. You've been giving him the box for years. Why all of a sudden you don't want to deal with Dirty D Cedric? Now you trying to level up to a Brad or a Lansky. You've been giving your prime years to a man who will never marry you. And then you are angry because that guy didn't marry you. He didn't make an honest woman out of you. And that's what we have. We have a bunch of people, man, that are just unhappy with life, man. And Valentine's Day is going to highlight that. Just look at the temperament of women who are single. Just look at the temperament on social media. Just look at the temperament on the job. You can tell the women on the job that didn't get no flowers or candy, ain't going on a date after work. They're pretty much going to go to work and then they're going to go home. Okay. Or they may go visit their ex. One of the exes that they can't stand, but they want somebody. So the ex is better than nobody. Okay. Now, this is about Valentine's Day. We want to keep that in perspective. But I also want people to understand that it is a different time, man. And a lot of you women, man, that are in your prime now, I want you to think twice before you start giving your best years, before you start having relations and having kids with these guys who you know in the back of your mind are not going to marry you. They're not going to financially be able to keep up with you. You need to think twice before you end up giving your best years to these guys. You know, raising their offspring. You're going to resent these guys and you're going to use them to measure against every other guy that you've dated, even though you should never be in that situation to begin with. You should never put yourself in a situation where you have to sit up here and you have to measure each guy and make sure he's not like your ex. But that don't usually happen till women are in their 40s. Once women get in their 40s, all of a sudden they want to micromanage the type of men that they deal with. You should have did that in your 20s. Women are supposed to mature faster than men. Why are you making these mistakes in your 30s and 40s? Why aren't you settled by then? Why do you have so many exes and no rings? Because women juggle different men all the time. They probably get approached by different men all the time. You know what a decent man is. But if you're used to something, because you know women and men are very conditioned these days. If you're conditioned to accept and to date one type of guy, unfortunately, you have women that are going to stay in that cycle. But they don't get out of that cycle until maybe they move to a different city or a different state where things are different. They start working around different people who live a different lifestyle. They're around married women or women in long-term relationships, and they see how their relationships are and how those women are. And they say to themselves, what have I been doing? You know, how many years have I wasted on Dirty D Cedric? You wasted all these years on Dirty D Cedric instead of you trying to fix your situation, you know, like Sierra did. Say what you want about Sierra. Sierra was able to fix her situation. She was able to make adjustments. Not a lot of women are going to be able to make adjustments because they refuse to change because they don't feel like they need to change. They feel like their circumstances need to change, or maybe the types, and I would say types of men, but maybe the different, ethnic groups of the men need to change. But they never look at the main issue in the situation, and it's ultimately them,